and welcome to the Webmethod Unplugged. My name is Robert McKay, and I will be guiding you through the journey that we're going on today with leaders across the industry as we talk about different things ranging from IT security to identity to different components of the industry. What's happening, what's working, what's changing, and what's coming next. Let's dive in. Well, I want to welcome all of our listeners back to the Webmethod podcast. We are unplugged today, and we are going to meet with our guest, Andy Garratt, who is from the UK. Andy, I'd like to welcome you. I love the fact that you've taken time out of your busy day to come and meet with us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. It's really good. We're always happy to come and talk to everybody, and it's really nice. So thank you so much for having us.
Well, and with that, I think that we're definitely due for an introduction about Garratt. So he was the customer services manager previous to this position that he's now holding as the technical product manager. Is that correct, Andy?
Yeah, I was in. I was basically the lead for lab services, which is where we sort of go out and put the kind of product in for customers. So I did that all
Yep.
around the world, and I thought, you know what, I want to go into the lab and I want to take that product and I want to make it even better. So I'm based out of Winchester in Hersley with IBM, and making the product. That's great.
And I think I kind of got to give folks the background of how you and I met. So we're at an IBM conference. It was about 3 or 4 months ago. And and the story of how I got there is even better. So I can't remember the gal's name who was running the whole, that whole enterprise episode of the room that we were in. But she couldn't get into the conference. And so what ended up happening is she was a presenter and she was supposed to be there, but the security would not let her in. And so what ended up happening is it was vendor day or something like that. So I had my
Hmm.
vendor badge on, and so I went over to the security guard and I said, "Well, she's with me." And just so that everyone who's listening is, this should never have happened to begin with. They should have just let her in, but they weren't going to let her in. So they kind of said, "Oh, okay, she's with you." And then her and I had a good laugh about that. And she invited me to come to the sessions that she was hosting. So I was actually, not only was I not supposed to be there, the person who gave me the invitation was like, "Sure, just come and we'll see how it goes." And so I brought an interesting perspective to the session because I was the only security guy there. And as the presentation started, Andy started talking about what his team was doing. And I have never been more blown away by what a team was able to so quickly, succinctly, and perfectly execute on what I saw in that room that day. And that was actually what led to my conversation with Andy. And Andy, I want to thank you for taking the time to answer my
Oh.
questions that day. I am sure the questions I was giving were definitely strange questions to be receiving in that sort of a session, because that's actually what led to this conversation right now. And I, as part of that, essentially this is what led to sort of the theme of what we're talking about, which is integrations, backbone of modern businesses, and it's not just an IT project, right? And I feel like I've been talking for a little bit. Is there anything you want to share, Andy, as we're moving into this?
No, it's yeah, as you say, you were right on the front row, and I said any questions, and it's like, oh, I got one. Oh, here we go, and it was it was really good, because it was a big conference. It was all over the place, as you say, and I'd actually been running an interactive lab. Literally, I paced it out. It was like half a mile away, so I had to run to hit my slot. I like sort of burst through the door, came up, and presented right in there. But it was really good because I mean, basically, you get the questions, you kicked off the interaction, and it was a really, really good session. It was part of, as you say, it's part of the vendor, the partner day, which is a key day for us at the start because we really value that relationship and getting the feedback, being able to talk to people, and also getting together after as well to chat around what we do is really, really valuable to us. So your feedback and your interaction was really awesome.
So, Andy, kind of given that, what can you share sort of, what pulled you into integration work?
So way back when, as you can tell from here, I've been in the industry a long, long, long time. I used to do ERP systems, so like manufacturing, order taking, inventory, that kind of thing. And I worked for an IBM business partner, as loads of people do. And I took these package systems and I put it in for various companies, pharmaceutical companies, automotive, people making televisions, paper, you name it. I've probably made it or built it. And one thing that they tried to do is to be the one system. So they had orders, they had finance, they had inventory, they had B2B, etc. But at the end of the day, no matter what, you always had to connect it to something else. They always had like a website or another sales system or B2B or whatever it was. And after a while, I found myself spending more time connecting different systems together than actually putting the systems in themselves. And I thought, this is way more interesting because
Yeah.
the things you connect them to were really powerful. You would find that you would actually start using what you built. You would sort of go and you'd make a payment in the bank and you think, hang on, that goes through my software. Or, you make a phone call. It's like, oh, hang on. And we have a phrase that we say, can you see the data flowing? And it's very much that we link the world together. And it was like this is a space that really is really important to to the place as a whole. We're not only putting payments together, we're booking people on planes. We're moving traffic around. We're shipping stuff. All of that kind of thing. We're into medical, aerospace, you name it. And it's all about getting data from where it needs to be. Sort of in A, shape A, place A to location B really fast, and as
Yeah.
you'd be very cognizant of, very, very securely.
Yeah, no, and it's kind that's actually that sounds super similar. So I'm an integrator on the security side, right? So my day job when I'm not trying to run a company is I integrate systems. And when you integrate those systems, it's always an interesting conversation because there's always somebody who doesn't follow the rules, right? There's always somebody who and there is specifically one that I'm recalling right now that it was a mainframe system. It was a Rack F mainframe system, and we were trying
Hmm.
to connect a modern, some mid-range set of servers or whatever, and it kept sending the connection kept dropping. So we'd essentially have this initial handshake, everything would be fine, and the connection would just abruptly end. And it took us 6 months to track down what was going on, and the mainframe was sending this end character just as part of the sequence, which, back in the '70s was a totally appropriate thing to send. The
Yep,
mid-range system had no idea what to do with it, so it just puked all over itself and said, "Nope, I'm out. Connection done. Didn't matter what was actually being streamed at that point." But those are the types of problems that you see with integrations, but that also make it so they make it challenging and fun, right? As you're making all
exactly.
of these systems talk to each other.
And that's it. Yeah, as I said, I've been in the game for a long time, and it's weird that the same things come up. I mean, as you say, we start off, with things like maybe file exchanges, and we have obviously, we have queuing, we have FTP, HTTP. There's so many ways to connect. But at the end of the day, exactly as you say, you got to look at those characters, you got to look at those control codes, EBCDIC, ASCII, all that kind of stuff we see in the mainframe. And when you're debugging, you do end up going, all right, let's have a look. We've got open tracing, we've got all these tools and everything, but at the end of the day, you say, aha, that's the one. But it's just so much easier now because we got the full observability things in there. But you still gonna know what to look for. And it's interesting when people say, oh, maybe I've built this huge JSON structure, or I don't know, maybe it's in the YAML or whatever it's going to be. And you're
Yeah,
still looking for that sort of hang on a minute, there's a little bit of white space there that doesn't, you almost get like that instinct for it. You say, that just doesn't, exactly as you said with that character. And you can spend ages chasing it down.
yeah.
And when you do
And
find it, it's the real buzz. I'm a problem solver and a builder at heart. And when you find it, there's that real push, isn't there?
you're like,
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
I
Just like
got
that. Finally. Yeah.
it. So kind of coming down into this integration work. Most people, when they hear integration, like the first word that pops in their mind is APIs, right? We've already labeled probably a half a dozen different integration types just in the first 5 minutes of this conversation. So like, what do you wish more leaders understood about that bigger landscape, right? That it is there are actually integrations beyond the API. That's more of a modern tool anyway that didn't exist 20, 30 years ago.
It's very much that it's not one size fits all. That's the real key thing. APIs are great, but when I started with APIs, an API would be like a Java stub or a little C header or something like that because it's an application
Yeah,
program interface. The idea that APIs are now REST over HTTP, that's
yeah,
new. We've had APIs for ages, but APIs are me saying, "Hi there, how much stock have we got? I'd like to place an order,"
yeah,
and that's all fine and that's great. But what if I need to be told something? What if I'm sitting here waiting? I don't want to go, is my stuff shipped? Is my stuff shipped? Is my stuff shipped? But people build that because if all you think of is everything's a REST and HTTP API, that's the way that's all you think you have. But you have an
Right.
asynchronous API as well, which can push things to you. So you say, I'm going to place my order. And if you place your order on an online website, you don't sit there going, "Where's my stuff? Where's my stuff? Where's my stuff?" They post it to you on as a text message or an email or it's like or whatever you've got set up. They push it to
Right.
you, and
Yeah.
they come through. The courier company then comes through and then says, "Boop, we've got your stuff. Now it's on the truck. Now it's at the depot. So now Sarah will be delivering it between 11 and 12." And being able to make that better quality of service by pushing data when they need it, as well as being able to pull it. And the other thing as well is even if you're saying, I want this to happen, yes, like the command pattern, make this happen and give me this data, you
Yeah.
need to worry on HTTP about things like retries. So if I'm making a call and I don't get a response back, did it happen? It either happened and I didn't know, or it never happened, so what do I do? And it's got to be there synchronously all the time. So if I'm saying, okay, I need to place an order on the order system, and the order system goes down for 5 minutes, and there's been a
Yeah.
big international outage today, isn't there, these things, and we say, well,
Cloudflare's down.
I'm not going to say that. Yeah. taking over the damn time. But these things happen. So they came back and everything, but there was a little downtime. So brilliant. So
Yeah.
what we do is we have the asynchronous queuing mechanism, and we say, well, I'm going to put it on the queue, and the queue mechanism is going to make sure it's going to get there, and it's going to make sure it only gets there once. So if you're placing orders, you don't want to place it twice. If you're making payments, and some of the payments people make are the millions of dollars, and you want it to get there exactly once. So the thing I would say to people is be aware there's more than one tool in the bag, and they all
Yeah.
work together, and you pick them together. Think about, if you look even at like Office, for example, you got Word, you got PowerPoint, you got Excel. You don't try and sort of, do complex formulas in PowerPoint because you got Excel.
Right.
If all you have is
Right.
PowerPoint, that's what you do. So being
Right.
able to have these multiple things that work, we call it multi-style, and being able to do
Yeah.
that makes life A, easier, and B, the throughput and the quality of service is a lot easier to do as well. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's not just
No,
it's not just APIs.
absolutely. So in kind of sort of moving sort of the next spot in this. So first off, I completely agree with that. And as you were talking about asynchronous delivery and not coming back in and refresh, 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 right? And what level do you think a system has to be at for people to trust asynchronous delivery, right? So like if I think about like how the internet was built, right? It was built on TCP, which is I send once, I respond, and then you get an acknowledgement. You have that three-way conversation.
Yep.
Like people were so, I guess what's the right word? Like, I mean, the internet was so not reliable, right? That we had to have this system to, to make sure that not only was the message received, but we had to acknowledge that the message, that
Yep.
was initially sent was received. And then, UDP was it comes back to that asynchronous call. But I guess kind of coming back to that, what level do you think something has to be at? Because I'm like, okay, are you at 5 nines? Are you at 99? Is it 80%? Like what do you think? And I've never thought about this before till right now that there must be a
Mm.
threshold where we as humans are like, okay, that's acceptable. Like we
Well,
don't need to hit the refresh
mm,
button because we know that at
yeah.
some point that or that asynchronous confirmation is going to come by.
It's interesting you mentioned about nines because people always say, how many nines can you do? And it's like, how many nines do you want? But every nine, every nine costs you money. Every nine costs you money. And this is it.
May not be what you want. What can you
Yeah,
afford?
exactly. I mean, so this is it, right? I mean, if you look at, sort of the world running and sort of like, airlines running, banks running, medical, everything, in general, stuff tends not to go down. We had an exception today, but and stuff tends not to go down. And we say, okay, well, it costs you money for reliability. And what is that money buying you? So one example is it's about confidence. And somebody once said with a courier firm, you're not buying the courier of your package from A to B. You're buying the confidence that it will get where it needs to be. And that's what we say. So if you say, right, I am going to put this message with this payment or this delivery or this, medical chart or whatever it is, this key value of data, I'm going to put this on this messaging queue. And you can do it transactionally.
Yeah.
You can do it, with a single phase. So, you've got that sort of, transactional commit and it's on there. And at that
Yep.
point, you can forget about it because the underlying infrastructure will assure that delivery. We call it assured delivery, and you'll get
Yeah.
assured once only encrypted delivery. Now, what we
Yep.
don't say is when it will get there, because if end A is up and end B is up, yeah,
Yep.
it's straight through. It's so fast that we can do zillions and
Yeah.
zillions of these things, no problem. It scales massively. But
Yeah.
if this is down, and this is so, here's the one for you with nines, right? This one's up, this one's
Yep.
down. Is it up?
No,
Well,
maybe?
is it? Because I can take orders. I can take
Is
orders
this
all day.
Schrodinger's cat? Like, is the cat in the box? Or
Exactly. So
like,
that's it. So one of the patterns we talk about is basically enhanced availability. So if I've got this system here, I mean, people have these systems like, we say, most customers have like 50 to 100. It's amazing. They have all these things that they can do. And if you have to add up the downtime and the maintenance, planned and unplanned, because systems, need to be patched and things. Not everyone's 24/7,
yeah.
365. And if you say to place an order, so I got to place an order, I got to go and get the stock, right? I got to go and browse for the item. I got to go and find the price. I've got to go and find if I'm a frequent shopper and I get 5% off. Do I get free shipping? Is the courier available? Does the courier come to my place, or if it's going to another country, do I need to get another courier? So just to say I want to place an order, you might be linking to 10 or 15 systems. So you
Yeah.
add up the
Yeah.
availability of all of those different systems there, and if this guy's 3 nines, this guy's 2 nines, this guy goes down on a Sunday, how available is this? And I love that one. I read a lot of Snoopy, and he says it's going to make your head spin,
And they're
and
not
that's it.
wrong. They're not
Yeah,
wrong.
exactly. But we talk about the confidence and user experience. So the idea being, if you've got your website and it's running, and you say, right, my website is on, I don't know, how many lines and everything, we go, all right, no problem. I don't care if this one goes down for an hour on Sunday, your order system, because I will take your orders and I'll put them on a queue. And I'll send a reply back saying, thank you, we have your order. And I'll queue them up for you. And when this guy comes back, pow, there's your order. And yeah, if
Yep.
this guy is out there, maybe the courier needs to know. And you need to know when the stuff is coming. And maybe sort of like, accounting needs to know, customer service needs to know. So the chatbot can go, when you say, where's my stuff? I can spray it out. So it's all about giving the customer that 24/7, 365. It's like the rubber duck pattern, isn't it? It's like calm and
Yeah.
serene, but underneath you're going like that. And
You go-
what you don't need to do is spend a pile of money on this, because this might have been in your company for 20, 30 years. Sometimes nobody knows
yeah.
what it does, but it does it really well, and it does it over and over again. I don't want to touch
Yeah.
this, but I want to build this. What do I do?
Yeah.
And it's like, right, you put integration in the middle. We can give you that assured delivery. We can give you that availability. If you have one of these in every region of every cloud in the world and you've only got one of these, no problem. We can do that for you. And so these are the
Yeah.
ways of thinking about it. People think, oh, all I'm doing is I'm syncing two customers together, or I'm going from A to B. But the variety of patterns, the availability things we can do is, it's sort of, you can really take these systems and modernize them without touching them. It's almost like magic.
I love it. And that actually leads into kind of what we were talking about next, which is the complexity and
Yeah.
of the distributed systems that we're dealing with today. So we've got SaaS, we've got cloud, we've got hybrid. You've got point-to-point sprawl, unclear ownership, slow delivery, growing operational loads. I mean, I think we hit literally every single one of those things in the last 30 seconds. So
Yeah.
what what other integration challenges are showing up right now? Is there something that is maybe rising to the top of that maybe we haven't seen before? I don't know if we're far enough down gosh, I was going to say it's not AI, it's gosh, what is IBM working on right now? It's quantum. There we go. I don't know if
Listen,
we're far
how
enough
many
down the
things would you
quantum.
like?
Yeah,
Quantum, AI,
you're like,
hybrid,
okay, hold
yeah, yeah,
on.
yeah,
The quantum route to maybe even kind of bring that into, but I'm just thinking about that. You're going to need to integrate, and it's kind of to your point about movement of data. I mean, my understanding from the quantum side that there is so much data moving
yeah,
that it's going to have to get slowed down to come back to what I'll call normal land, right? Like if you're putting this into a computer or a machine or whatever, like there we don't have anything that functionally
Mm.
today would be able to keep up with these machines, right? I mean, I'm thinking about this from an integration layer, right? You have somebody who's moving at literal light speed, and then you have another dude who's driving at 65 miles an hour. Well, I mean, that's going to present some interesting sort of integration challenges, isn't it?
It does. It does. I mean, it's also the scaling challenge as well, because if you're
Yep.
running something on the cloud, right? Say you're running your ticketing system on the cloud, you can be sitting there with like mobiles, watches, Alexas, you name it, and they're
Yep.
firing in hundreds of thousands a second, and you can scale on the cloud. But can you backend scale? Can you get the data out? And one of the things is that you're all around the world. You can hyperscale, and it's a really big word, isn't it? Hyperscale. And
Yeah.
so the question is, how do you scale the data? How do you get the data that needs to be where it needs to be? And you need to look at what we call, one of my mentors said about, you need to get the feel of the shape of the data. Yeah, does it move a lot? Is it big and wide, or is it small and thin? And yeah, he would wave his arms around. You see me doing it. Used to be an architect. The and he said, you've got to get the data where it needs to be, and it's about latency and bandwidth. Because if I'm hosting my stuff in the cloud, I need to be in multiple regions, right? Not only for
Yep.
availability, but also for latency and giving a customer service. So,
Yeah.
say for example, I'm an airline, and here's the one I was talking about. Oh, an airline, or I'm selling tickets to a concert. If I'm selling books and I've got the latest copy of whatever the latest big blockbuster is, and I've got 1,000 of them, and you sort of almost like try and buy the same one twice, it doesn't matter because I can make more of them. If it's
Yeah.
like movies and stuff, I can make even more of them downloads. It's great. It's when you have business constraints that the fun bit. Like I can, there's only ever one seat 34 on that flight going from Las Vegas to Orlando on the 29th. That's all there is.
Right.
How do I stop two people buying it when there's how many people in the world who might potentially be buying it? And not only am I buying
Right.
it direct from my airline, I might be an aggregator like Expedia or something, or Kayak, because they're going to list the flight. Everyone's going to say, "I want to go from A to B." Right? There's this flight
Yep.
available. All right, that's nice. So I've got this flight available. How do they know the flight's available? So do they come to me every time? Do I push my flight availability to them? If somebody books that seat, I need to do like what I call like a business lock or a soft lock. And you've probably seen it when you're buying tickets even at the movie theater, isn't it? It's like you have 1 minute
Yeah.
to complete your transaction. And so and so the
You better
physical,
decide
yeah,
quick.
exactly. It's sitting there going, yeah. Is it that Big Bang Theory one where they're going refresh, refresh for the Comic Con tickets? And yeah, you see them do that, don't you? But it's like that. And so in the hyperscaler world, in the digital world, we can scale like crazy. If somebody buys, 10 million copies of the latest AAA game, that's a bandwidth problem. It's getting the pipe down from the cloud down to your PC, your PlayStation, your Xbox, or whatever you play on.
Yeah.
But in the business world, there are physical things. And so you need to look and say, how many of those are there? If, I try and buy a new car and I don't get the one I want, can I go to the manufacturer and get them to make another one? Probably. If I'm trying to buy a used car, there's one of those. Theater tickets, I've got one of those. And so what we have to do is get that exactly as you say. You've got all these systems that are scaling like crazy, and the integration software can scale like crazy. But it always comes down to what thing you're trying to do. And we talked about reliability. We said, if you're sending like $20 million from A to B, you really want it to get there, and you want it to get there once.
Uh,
Then people say, well, okay, let's assume I'm buying a book from a bookstore, and I'm buying a book online from a bookstore. And you say, okay, I'm buying the book, and I've got my guaranteed next day delivery, and it doesn't turn up. I get on the chat button, I go, hey, what's going on here? And they go, sorry, 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 it's our fault. We'll send you another one. And then I
yeah.
get two. And this comes to the business one, and this is what I learned a lot in those ERP days, because you would talk to people running the business thing, and I would say things like, I'm new here. How do you make a car? I'm new here. How do you get televisions from the factory to the
Yeah.
store? I'm new here. How do you get oil out of the ground? And people very kindly would look and go, "Who is this 20-year-old guy? Okay, I will explain to you, you know, how." And you learn things like in the finance world that you sell them before you have them. You know, things like
Yep.
options and like it's not how
Yep.
you think. And so I said, "Well, I've now got 2 books." And some companies will say, and it's all about the cost. It's all about the money at the end of the day. Some will say, right, well, I've got the books and I've already paid the courier to get it. If you return it, somebody's got to pay to get it back, and I've got to restock it. And then you look at the book and you go, I don't know, this is a book. It's a mass bestseller. Maybe it's $15. All right, you keep it. Give it to a friend. And with that kind of thing, you're buying goodwill because this may happen once in 100 million times because you're on
Yep.
HTTP and you get like a refund. You say, give it a friend. You go, hey, this company's great. I got $2, and they call it again. You want to do business with these guys, and they sell another zillion
Yep.
books. And
Yep.
you know, I took it one day and I said, do you think we should like insert like an error every so often? It's like, no, 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 don't do that. But if you have a bank and your bank accidentally gives you, like, say you accidentally get paid twice, okay, you're always going to have to pay the money back. But it comes down to that trust thing. You're going to say, hang on, even if you gave me the money, what else are you doing? Are you taking it out? And suddenly I'm going, "Whoa, I don't know." And the trust is key things to organizations like bank or like, you know, healthcare. I mean, if somebody accidentally sends you 2 shots of drugs or something, you think, "What the hey?"
Yep.
So in those, you know, that confidence, that assuredness, that correctness of the transaction is everything.
Yep.
Well, you may decide that the goodwill you get from sending duplicates is actually better.
Yeah.
So we're taught to say it all depends, but it's what's best for the customer. And basically our customer then says what's best for their customers.
So in terms of these types of projects, right? So we've gone over a few. Where does the technology, or where did the projects, the integration, where does it normally break down? Does it break down like on the tech layer, process, people? I have my own opinion on it, but I didn't want to contaminate it. So I
I feel like I'm just going just entered an exam here. No, it kind of breaks down when people don't understand why it's there. One of
yep,
our previous 2 CEOs, Junior and Matty, always said, always ask why, always know why. And if you
yep,
don't know why, ask and find out. You know, it was really, really good advice. Right from the CEO of the company, it comes down to myself. I said, right, I'm going to take that. And so someone was running up and say, oh, we've got this interface here. Why is it here? Why did we build it? Why did we build it that way? That's when it sort of breaks down when it, and you know that diagram, isn't it? Which is here's the entire internet, and like here's a like sort of 15 lines of code, and someone's doing it in their bedroom. And
yep,
you can where you break down is when people don't know because our software has been running forever, their software has been running forever, their business is fine. And when they say, well, I
yeah,
don't know what this does, I haven't got the observability. If you think how many
yeah,
businesses an individual business talks to, or how many branches a big international retailer will have,
yep.
so having observability, having monitoring, having self-documented systems, and all that kind of thing is crucial. But I'd be really interested in your opinion as well. Which point you say, no, no, you're wrong, Andy.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So so here's where I'm at. That if you've got a leader who's resistant or maybe not willing to participate, or more importantly, understanding why they're doing what they're doing, right? When they, the customer. And so specifically, we do identity integrations, right? Large scale. We do
Mhm.
SIAM, we do workforce. It doesn't matter at the end of the day because you have to communicate with it, and you pointed out technology is generally sound, right? The processes may need some re-engineering, but that's usually not going to bring a project to its knees. That communication layer with those people, right? And making sure that everybody's rowing in the same direction, right? That they, and that they understand why. Because if somebody fundamentally does not understand why you are doing something, down to the business analyst all the way up to the SVP CEO, their desire to participate in the conversation might be lackluster, right? Or even worse, I was going to say lackluster would be, the bottom of the barrel, but like if they end up being antagonistic or
Mhm.
fighting the integration, right? And they don't understand why, and you haven't taken the time to explain to them why these initiatives are important, right? I love to pick on HR just because that's generally the department that When we go knock on HR's door, they kinda turn to us and are like, "What are you doing here, and why are you here? Why do you want our data?" And you have to take the time to work with them. You have to take the time to explain the initiative, and then you also have to say, "I know that you have 10 other things going on. I'm sorry that you have 10 initiatives that have
Yeah.
come from every other department because they all need your data too. But we have to get this done to keep your company safe and moving forward, right?" And so, I mean, that's my 2 cents on it.
I think that's right. It's you say about the why, and that's two ways. One is, you always say, yeah, let me tell you what we're doing here. And I always start from the bottom and I say, if you know all this and it's fine, fine. Indulge me a little bit. Because there might be someone in the room who doesn't know or is, too scared to speak up or whatever. So, and also you go from the start and say, well, this has got to get from A to B, how do we do it, etc. But what I always like to do as well is to say, okay, turn it back on you. Tell me your story.
Yeah.
Tell me how your system's got to be like this. Tell me why
Yep.
is this here? One of my
Yeah.
mentors, who's now retired from IBM, but he had a brilliant phrase, and he said, "Every piece of the architecture must earn its place." And
Yep.
so someone would say, "Here's our architectural diagram," and you say, "Why is that there? What does that do?"
Yep.
And sometimes you can get, "We don't know." Sometimes you might even get two people saying, "It does A, no, it does B." And being able to help talk people through what they have and discover what they have. Sometimes part
Yep.
of our job is just instrumenting the systems to say, let's just see what this does. How many orders does this place in a day? Let's see what's happening here. And so getting that observability out before you even try and do something new is key. And exactly as you say, there's lots of pressures in 10 different ways, isn't there? I've got 10 different things. Oh, and there's you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. And it's like, how can you make that as seamless as it is? Because depending on how they go, you can be just another problem they have to deal with, or you can be an
Yeah.
opportunity to make their lives easier, and you hope you're going to be the latter.
and and you hope for both of your sakes that you could prove that to them because then they want to continue to work with you.
Exactly, exactly. And, well, that's the other thing as well, is proving it. I mean, that's the thing. You sit there and you go, right, okay, and it's all in, it's working fine, everything's great, and you say, right, fantastic. And then you say, right, how do we know it's working? And, well, all the tests pass. Yeah, brilliant. Okay. Well, are we shipping more stuff? Are we making, less mistakes on the orders? Are things happening
Yeah.
faster? Are you getting because what we always say is if you buy the product and you buy the service, you buy the software, you want to make more money than you spend. That's what it's about, right? We're enabling you
Yep.
to be more successful. And it's also you can ask about why is this here? I did one where they said, right, we need these 30 reports. We said, all right, for each report, when you look at it, what decision will you make or what action will you take?
Yeah.
If you're not going to make a decision or take an action, why is it there? And
Yeah.
you say, oh, hang on a minute, and we got it down to 10. And and they were better with that because it's like I don't have to look at 30 reports, so it's better for them, better for us. It was a real win-win. And coming in as someone outside the company,
Well, and it's interesting because you're hitting on the next question I'm going to ask, which was about like, what's the price that you pay for integrations that are messy, right? Tech debt's really kind of something that gets thrown around a lot, especially as a developer, right? I mean, it's without end where you'll advise a customer and you'll say, "Hey, we will get this done the way that you've asked, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, but I'm letting you know right now you will have to come back at some point because of how messy this is, right? Now, I know you've got a business objective we're trying to go get, but like the example you just pointed out, you could end up with 30 reports and that's good. There's going to be a price to pay for that, right? When you could have had one report. Now, the reality is compelling business need, metrics, timelines, budgets, all of those have to be respected. There's also that sort of forward thinking leader who every now and then will say, okay, hold on. And I'm actually thinking of a very particular instance where when I went in and I had a conversation with the architect, and the architect said, "Pound sand, right? We're doing this." And I said, "I don't think you understand how messy this thing is that you're doing," right? Leaving the details of what was going on out of it.
Mhm.
And they said, "No, oh, I do." And I said, "No, you don't." Like, I took so I was consultant on that project, so I took it up to her boss, And then her boss said, essentially, I understand the risk. You need to take this to the CIO. And so it got escalated all the way up to the CIO. I had a risk memo in my hand and I said, here's what our recommendation is. And here's the mess you're signing up for if you continue to go down the path that you are going down. And this CIO looked at me and looked at this architect and said, do it.
Yeah.
Right? Avoid, we need to make a contractual change and we need to address this now. Now, that doesn't happen all the time. Most of the time, in fact, it doesn't happen. People say, yep, there's not a really lot of forward thought, just a present state
Mm.
of mind. And they say, yep, we're just going to accept the risk and we're going to move on. And then, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, they say, well, you didn't tell me anything. You didn't say anything. Yeah, we did.
It's again, it's what business are you in? What's your attitude to Russ, what's your attitude to that? How long will this
Yeah.
thing last? Yeah, there's always
Yeah.
things you don't know about. Like maybe, I
Yeah.
don't know, there's an impending merger coming that you don't know about and I can't tell you
Yeah.
about.
Who cares,
But
right?
well, it's almost that, it's like sort of, it's this kind of thing. This doesn't happen, this doesn't happen.
I mean, if
This
there's an
system's
impending
going
merger,
away.
nobody.
There's in general, people act rationally and inform them so they can make an informed decision. I think was
Yeah.
it one of the U.S. presidents said all you can do is look under your desk, look at the data, make the decision, and move on. Because
Yeah.
and so once you've done that, and I think I would say you obviously need to make a considered decision. You need to make sure you've got all the factors, what the impact, and also we always say what's the impact of not acting. If you don't do this, what would happen? But
Yeah.
please make a decision. Don't kick it down the line. Quite quite often,
Don't give it to
make a
somebody
decision and make a decision and act. 3 months down, you've got a system, right? If you're still
Oh
around the
my
table
god.
going, what we gonna do? So yeah,
Oh my god.
yeah, it's
Well, all right.
but there's a lot to be
It's
said
fine. It's
for doing
fine.
it, isn't there? Yeah, yeah.
Oh. Well, all right. So kind of moving a little bit more technical.
Go right
Did
ahead.
a lot
I'll
of the
yeah.
thoughtful stuff.
No,
Okay.
I'll go anywhere. This
So
is great.
so in terms of core patterns, you got APIs, messaging, and event streaming, right?
Yeah,
And there's more beyond that, but for the sake of this conversation, had to kind of contain it a little bit.
exactly. Yeah.
So, what you know, when you're deciding when an API is right versus messaging or streaming, like what kind of goes into that, that train of
It
thought?
some of it is immediate requirement. Um, some of it
Yeah.
is when somebody says, okay, this is this has to be fully resilient against sort of flood and fire and everything. I've got to have that assured delivery.
Yeah.
So timeliness is one, right? So you say, right, I'll do the assured delivery, but if the target isn't there, there's nothing I can do. But when the target comes back, I will do it. So
Yeah.
if time is more important, so you might say, well, actually, I'm going to go and see if Courier One can ship it tomorrow. But if Courier One's not
Yeah.
available, a tenth of a second later, I'm going to try Courier Two, Courier Three, Courier Four, Courier Five. And
Yeah.
so at that point, you might say, well, actually, I'm going to give you a go. And if you don't come back, yeah, what you going to do? I'm going to try somebody else. And even if you come back to me 10 seconds later, sorry, guy, this is a fast moving thing. And in payments and trading, in stock, or even, if you're trying to grab an airline seat for somebody, it's that kind of thing if you're not there. So it's about, timeliness is one. The second is about what's the cardinality? Is it one to one or is it one to n? And
Yeah.
so if I've got an API that's coming in and saying, okay, I am going to place an order for a book, how many people need to know about that order? Yeah, is it just the order system, and will the order system then spread around, or is it better to say, well, actually, I'm going to place an order which will go to the order system and the shipping system and the billing system and the sales system and the analytics and the AI and at which point, all right, that's one to n. So one to
Yeah.
n, I think, right, streaming Kafka, whoa, 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 whoa. If I put it onto Kafka, that's great and it'll spread everywhere, but Kafka isn't going to keep track of who saw it, which might be absolutely fine. It's there until somebody cares to pick it up. If I
Yeah.
have to worry about ensuring that each individual person gets it, then messaging can do pub sub as well. So, but
Yep.
the messaging will do is it will wait until each individual person has got it and go, right, everybody's got it. Thank you. Whereas Kafka is effectively like putting it on, on a huge billboard, everyone go, here it is, here it is. When you want to read it, it's there for
Yep.
you. And
Yeah.
it goes through, but it doesn't know who's read it. And so, it's those things. It's that sort of timely. It's that one to n, and it all comes back to the whiteboard. Because one thing I do remember is, when I started out, and someone, because I did maths at college, not computing, and they said, right, I want you to do a system context diagram, and I went, what on earth is a system context diagram? And this was before the internet, so you can just Google, and it's like, all right, I said,
You're like,
I've no idea, but like, it was like, oh,
Watson,
okay.
tell me,
Yeah,
Watson, what this
exactly,
is.
exactly. So it's like, all right, I have no idea. I said, but I'm just going to draw you what I think. So I'm going to have this system here. It's going to put the message to here. It's going to put the data here. It's going to put that on there. This is going to go to there. And someone goes, yeah, that's it. And if you say to somebody, draw a system context diagram, quite often, especially if they're business focused, they will go, if you say to somebody, draw me how an order goes through your system, draw me how you book an airline seat, draw me
Yep.
how you decide which band to book at your stadium next week. And they will draw the data flow. And they will say, and this
Yeah.
guy tells this guy, and this guy, and this guy. And you're thinking, right, that's one to N. Is that queue pub sub? Is that event streaming? And so it really is those things. It's also what you already have. Because if you've got an HTTP endpoint, then I can call it with an HTTP client. I
Yep.
can put assured delivery queuing in the middle, and that will give you a better quality of service. But do you need it? Yeah, it comes back to that books. Do you care about the repeating? So
Yeah.
choosing between them, and that's why we always say, you need to have all of them available to you, because otherwise,
Yep.
I don't know if if it travels over the Atlantic. But in Europe, we have this thing that says, if all you've got is a hammer, every problem looks quite like a nail after a while. You just get
That's one of
and
my favorite sayings,
yeah,
by the way. I
yeah.
just love it.
Yeah. So we like to say, here you go, you've actually got the toolbox. I've got the wrench, I've got the screwdriver. And of course,
Yep.
nowadays it's more like, yeah, I've got the battery, rechargeable, portable, impact driver and all the rest of it.
Yep.
Life's a lot easier like that. But you still gotta know when to use which, right? I mean, nails still have their place, screws still have their place, adhesive has their place. And you kind of get a feel for it a little bit as well. You can have patterns, you can have decision trees. But that's why you need, the professional services organizations as well to go, you know what, when I saw this one similar to here, we did this. And that's the idea of the
Yeah.
pattern, isn't it? Does this look like what you're wanting to do? The
Yeah.
pattern books and the integration patterns, as you're saying, this is what an API is. It solves this problem. This
Yep.
is a cache of data. It solves this problem. Yeah, and
Yep.
it's like, do you have this problem? This pattern will solve it for you. And sometimes people, they don't know what's available.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm going to move a file from here to here. All right. So maybe, what I do is I keep all the sales, and at the end of the day, I send the sales to the mainframe in head office so it can reorder. Well, if you run out of blue paint at 09:30 in the morning in your store, wouldn't you like to order it like by 10 a.m. so maybe you get a shipment in the afternoon?
Right.
That's a better quality of service. You're waiting till 6 p.m.
Speaking of patterns, what are some anti patterns that you see? And it's I that one I mean I'm sure you see them all the time.
Mhm. So there's an argument that I have. Have you heard the joke about one architect is an authority, but two architects are a fight? And they three architects in a room, only one will walk out, right? so there's an argument about what is an anti-pattern. And so
Okay.
one point of view says, don't do this. Yeah, it's just a bad thing to do. The second one is, this is something that looks like a good idea, but there's a catch, there's a gotcha. And that's my definition of the anti-pattern, because,
Sure.
sort of a bad pattern or whatever. And there's sort of, there's various things. So one is sort of the idea of a misunderstanding of how things work. And so this idea that I need it to go really, really fast, so I've got to make it synchronous. And so if you ask, people think, well, I'm not going to put it on a queue because that takes time to put it on a queue, and it takes time to marshal it and unmarshal it and all the rest of it. So I'm going to make it
Yep.
synchronous, despite the fact you still got to marshal it and unmarshal it over the network packet, right? I mean, but yeah, don't worry about
Yeah.
that. And so they'll go through. But then people say, well, I'm going to make it synchronous. So sometimes they then hold the thread, and they hold the thread and they make it synchronous. Like, and they say, oh, right, well, I've got to make 10,000 requests a second. That means I need 10,000 threads. No. What you do is you send the message, you release the thread, you hold the reference, or you put it on a queue and you just keep blasting notes away. So if you think about the way that you deal with people over email, you don't wait until that email
Yep.
comes back. You send a load of emails and it comes back out of order, but you've sent the references, and that's way more efficient. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
asynchronous is quite often faster, as well as the decoupled, advantage. You can scale independently, that kind
Yeah.
of thing. The other one is the ones with the gotchas. So that's sort of like a sort of a yeah. Sort of don't do that. Don't always assume that synchronous is faster. The second one,
Yeah.
which I quite like, is if you have a single queue of messages and you have multiple systems trying to pull them from one message queue, you can end up with a situation where everything queues up behind the slowest consumer, and you can sort of simulate
Yep.
it and watch it go. And you think it won't happen. You think, oh, I've got a pile of these things there. And the example is like, say you're on a travel site and you say, I want to book a hotel in New York next week. And it'll go off to all the different hotel chains, and it'll say, right, okay, where are they? So each of the hotel chains is sort of, going to say, yes, I can do your room. I can do your room. Sorry, we're full. You always end
Yep.
up backing up behind the slowest one. And it's
Yep.
completely counterintuitive. You think it can't possibly do it. So sometimes you almost say, look, do it with beans on a stopwatch or whatever you want to do, whatever will convince you that is the case. So that's my favorite example of that gotcha of the,
Yeah.
it looks like a good idea. It looks perfectly fine. There's no obvious reason why it wouldn't work. But the
Yep.
reason some of us have grey hair, and exactly as you say, with that, how many months it took to fix it, we've been there, we've done that. It's 1 in the morning, and like, that's what it was. And luckily, a friend of mine, Malcolm, told me about this one, so I didn't have to go through it firsthand. But it's having that in there. Have you heard about
Yeah.
the Monty Hall problem? About the
No.
so I won't necessarily go through this in detail, but it's another one where what you what you think intuitively can be wrong. So the idea is there's a guy called Monty Hall and he runs a game show where you can win a car. And he has three doors. And what you do is behind two of the doors is a goat, and that's what you win. You go home with a goat. And behind the other door is a sports car, right? And so you come up on the game show, and he says, "Welcome to the game show. Would you like to win a car?" Well, of course. So you say, "Right, okay." And he says, "Right, door A, B, or C." Well, go on, try it. A, B, or C. Win a car. What would you pick?
A. A.
So you're going to pick A. Alrighty, you've picked A. That's fantastic. Let me open door B. Door B is a goat. Do you want to switch?
No,
Why?
because I like my door A.
Everybody does. Mathematically, and there was a huge argument in Scientific American about it. If you've ever watched Mythbusters, they did it for real to prove it with real people. You should
Yeah.
always switch. And the reason
Really?
is, yeah, the reason is, and there's a zillion more better explanations of this. Go look it up. But if you see arguments of people with PhDs and like math professors arguing in Open Scientific American about it, and you'll see it in Mythbusters. They did it literally. They did it with real people coming up, and they did
Yeah.
the numbers, because the idea is you think, okay, I've got these three doors, right, and you chose A, good choice. So, what are the chances that you're right?
33%. Some
Correct.
change.
So, what are the chances you're wrong?
7, let's see, 66? Is that right?
Yeah,
Maybe
exactly, right.
66%?
So you've
Yeah.
chosen A, right? So it's more
Yeah.
likely you're wrong than you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if it's more likely you're wrong, why don't you change? Because every fiber of your being is telling you it makes no difference, but it does. And that's an example
Okay.
of yeah, because that's it. Because what I'm doing, I'm never gonna the reason it works mathematically is because I'm never gonna open the door that has the car. So the game is rigged. If I randomly
Right.
opened a door, it would be 33%. But you choose
Yeah.
your door, right? the chances of you being right first time are you're more likely to be wrong than
Already
right.
stacked against you.
So
Yeah,
what I'm effectively saying is, do you want this door or do you want both of these? Because you've already seen this, so you got that for free. So do you want this or both
right.
of those? And so
Yep,
it's one of those where you think you know how it works. And
yeah,
your parents brought you up great and all the rest of it, and society in general is good, and you've learned how the world works. And
yeah.
sometimes that wire is there. And even when you've gone through it, you look through the mathematical formula, you can watch people do it, you can run simulations and code, and you still go, that can't be right. And that was the same with that anti-pattern, with the gotcha. So sometimes you just got to let it go, like the movie says, just let it go. And you just got to know that's the anti-pattern. And and that's my favorite example when people say, surely you can't be tricked like that. I said, let me tell you about Monty
I was
Hall.
gonna
Let me
say
tell you about
Disney's
Monty
gonna
Hall and the
show up to
goats.
my pound on my door now. Copyright, let it go.
Exactly,
Hey, we let go of
exactly,
that any pattern. Oh my gosh.
exactly.
Well, and that actually kind of rolls really well into metrics and API or metrics
Yeah,
and KPIs, right? That's if you're taking the measurements and the numbers are telling you to do it, and your instincts to hold on door A, right? You've got to address it, right? You have to
yeah,
address it. And that might be cultural, that could be psychological, whatever, right? But if the numbers are telling you to do something, I mean, that's why CFOs make so much money and those accountants, right? Is because they,
yeah,
they follow the numbers. And in terms of controls and measurables that can come back, like if you're holding on to anti patterns, that's going to induce problems into your automation returns, right? And it's going to cause its own set of issues that are going to impact your drivers. So, in terms of automation delivery and being able to bring stuff back to measurable incomes, how do you balance that, right? Like you've got to have the speed, right? And
yeah,
I think most people would naturally gravitate, yes, speed, quality, like you must have these things.
yeah.
But then you have governance, which always, well, let me back up. Maybe this is an anti-pattern. I don't know. I got to think about it now. Feels like governance always slows down everything that's automated, even when it is
Yeah.
automated. How do you balance that?
It's hard, isn't it? Because I once worked for a customer and they said, for this product, for this project, it's regulatory. Or not, don't worry about the budget, but money is less important than compliance. So do whatever you need to
Yep,
do. So I was saying, how do you want this set up? Do you want it set up like this? Do you want this switched on? Do you want this installed? Install everything. Set it all up. I want everything. Don't ask me any questions. And I said, it's not quite like that. It's like, can't you just turn
yep,
everything on? Just install everything. And I said, it's like a car. Do you want an auto shifter or a stick shifter? What
yep,
color do you want? I can't paint it two colors at once. And
yep,
what his instinct was, and this is why I love working, with all our customers and the people across IBMs. You learn every day from everybody, and it's great. And he taught me about this idea of durability of decisions. So he said, look at this car. He said, if you say pick a manual, what do you call it stick shift in the US? But we call it a manual over
yep.
here. Manual versus an automatic, right?
I
He
was gonna
said,
say I've
if
heard them called both, so
okay, yeah. So he said, choosing that, or maybe a diesel versus a gasoline engine, the
yeah,
changing of that decision is going to cost me a fortune. And, there are impacts. So I got to make a good decision right up. The
yep,
color of the car, if I don't like it, I can get a respray or a wrap. It might cost me a bit of money, but it's changeable. I can try it out.
yep, yep,
And maybe, the color of the interior, I can live with it. And it said things like, if I put in maybe, I don't know, maybe I put in a CD player, I can rip it out and just put in my my wireless Bluetooth one later on. That's easy. I swap it out at the auto hi-fi store, and that's easy to do. And he said, "Tell
yeah,
me what decisions are important. Tell me what decisions I can change.
yep,
What is gonna chew me down the line? What's gonna?" And it was a really good experience because you sort of looked at it and said, and we sort of had this cost of decision triangle, and he says, right, you got to have that one. So we took it to the board and everything. Got to have that one. Took it to the committee. Got to have that one. And I said, what? And it was things like he said, the guy said, "Oh, I don't care what color it is. I sit inside it." And it was probably pushing the the metaphor too far. But there were things where
yeah,
it's like It's things like, what do you want to call your cluster? I don't care. It genuinely doesn't matter. You choose. So we had like name of company dev one or whatever it is. But other things, were working like what level of encryption do you want? And we said, well, obviously you want to go for, you want to secure the living daylights out of it. And he said, well, okay, if I'm going at like a million a second, how many millis is each one of those going to take? Is it symmetric? Is it?
Yeah,
And I thought, aha, I can work with
yep,
you. This is my kind of thing. And so, it's your area as well. It's like, what's the cost of what you want to do? So when you're looking at these things and you say, what are the choices, what are the trade-offs? Not only is it how much money you're spending, but how much are you locking yourself in? Yeah, if you're going to choose a cloud, are you going to be on there all the time? Are you thinking I might want to move clouds? Maybe I want to be on multiple clouds. Do I want to be on many places?
yep,
I mean, my stuff will run anywhere you want. But what that means is you might say, well, this cloud provider has this really cool service that I want to use, and it's brilliant. Okay, well,
yep,
that's fine. But now you're in there, and they say, well, that's fine. If we want to move, we'll go and do something else. And
yep.
it's that it because the hardest thing is when people say, what do you think it's going to be like 5 years in the future? And I just thought, oh man, that's a bit like saying, what's the
Don't ask
Powerball
me
number going to
questions
be
like
next
that.
week? Isn't it? It's like, if I could do that, I would have I'd be
I'm gonna go be a stockbroker if I'm doing stuff 5 years in the future. That's too far
ex-
down the
ex-
line for me.
exactly. So you can see trends. So it's basically knowing what the big bets are. Knowing what the big things is. Make sure the foundations of your house are right. Make sure the roof is on tight. And you
Yeah,
can paint the den twice a year if you want. It doesn't really matter.
yeah,
Pick the right decisions and spend the money on the right decisions. Get your foundations right and get your people bought in exactly as you said. Tell them why we're doing it this way. Tell them why we're doing it this way. And if they're objecting, ask them why. It might be a case
yeah,
of, well, hey, you might not know. You want to go for a manual gearbox. Everybody's going for automatics this year. If you want Americans to come over and rent your cars, automatics, right? They don't want stick shifts. So it's that kind of
yep,
thing. They may have experience that you don't, and so ask
yeah.
around is another good piece of advice.
Well, well, I appreciate that. I mean, I think that was all super, super informative. And in terms of like practical takeaways, kind of sort of as we track to the end of the podcast here, something that I think is always important is do you sort of have a like if a team's stuck in a point to point integration, right? What's the first move to clean it up? Like, is there something practical that a team can take to begin to move the needle on that?
If they've got multiple point to points, if they've got so spaghetti, you're talking if they've got a single one, what's just when you're saying that they got point to point integration, normally point to point per se isn't all that bad, but if you got lots and lots and lots of point to points,
Sure.
that's when it's hard. So what we like to do with that one is, as you say, document and understand it because the easiest way to start to unpick it is to look at the shape of the data. This is why I'm so lucky to have
Yep.
had such lots of mentors, that get the shape of the data. So you sort of look at it and you go, right, where are the key things going through? If I've got 10 different point-to-point integrations into the customer master system,
Yep.
why is this? How many different people are coming into there? Is
Sure.
everybody needing their own ID? Is everybody
Yeah.
needing their own life cycle? Is everyone needing their own thread pool? All this kind of thing.
Yep.
And if you
Yep.
look for where that data is duplicated, where the requests are duplicated, all this kind of stuff, that's when
Yep.
you can start making savings. You can say, I've got 7 connections here. Wouldn't it be better to have one connection that 7 people use? And that's when you start getting from the plans from point to point, and then
Yep.
we evolve to hub and spoke because you're reusing
Yep.
those connections. You then
Yep.
do things like going for the bus patterns and the server patterns and the API patterns.
Yep.
And so, you can sort of start explaining, don't boil the ocean the first time around because, the anti-pattern is let's have a huge program that doesn't, again, this may be a European thing. We have a thing, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. And so
Yep.
how do you do a 3-year program? You do it a day at a time, a week at a time, a month at a time. We've seen agile sprints, all that kind of good stuff. That's how we build
Yep.
software. And so every time you're along, you learn a little something, but also you get a nice pat on the back. If you say, I'm going to take just that customer one, I'm going to do that customer one, then
Yeah.
you've got value. And if you want, you can decide to stop. But you probably won't, because you go, hey, we learned about this and I got value here. I can do that over here. I can do that over here. And people will start hearing about it. Say, hey, I heard you managed to do this, you managed to do that. Oh, let me tell you about it. And this happens all the time with us in IBM. Someone will hear that we've done something. Oh, come on, tell me how you do that, because we share, techniques and code around all the time. Good things, sort of proliferate. And so that idea of making sure the one works and make sure it goes live. One integration that goes live is worth 50 that are stuck in test and waiting for deployment.
Yep.
Yeah, there's also
I
shipping is king.
so we talked about this at the very beginning of the episode, and I think it's I KPIs and metrics at the end of the day, if you can measure your programs, I mean, that's really where the W is, right? That's where the win's going to come from is you can show
100%.
that the program is improving. So what should organizations be measuring? I mean you shared a few at the beginning. I think we talked about, hey, number of data entries that are no longer like incorrect, right? So
Yeah,
accuracy of data, number of delivery, in a shipping system, deliveries that are now arriving on
exactly.
time, essentially redundancies in the system that we've now removed. And maybe that's it. Maybe that, there could be more, but those I feel like are all great metrics that you can
Yeah,
definitely take for some amount of time before, and you should see a reduction or improvement in all of those if you've done the job correctly.
100%. I have this phrase I use called dashboard driven development. And we say, right, what does it look like now? Why am I here? Why did you even call? You've obviously got a
Yep.
problem or an opportunity. And again, it's another one I use is how do you know when you've won? Or what does good look like?
Yeah.
And if somebody says, I don't know, we are, we're going to open another 30 stores, so I've got to be able to take, I've got to improve, capacity by 15%. We go, all right, let's get a metric with capacity. Let's put it on there. Let's see a number on it. We'll do a before and after, exactly as you just said. All right, what else is there? Well, okay, we have a thing that we want to get more repeat purchases. We find that people buy from us once because they just go on price. We want to go on quality. All right, let's measure
Yep.
how many people come back and start right from the person writing the check.
Yep.
Why, why are you here? Why are you in business? Why are you in government? Why are you doing whatever it is you do? And
Yep.
get get that one get that one metric. We have this idea called a North Star, where we say this is the one key thing that we keep an eye on. And the other thing with metrics is don't have 1,000 of them, because which one wins? Have a few big ones that are
Yeah.
really important to you, like how many customers do
Yeah.
you have? How many orders are you shipping? But look for the hidden metrics. So fashion retailers have this problem because it's like how many clothing items am I selling? Oh, 1 million a day on Saturday. How many of them come back on Monday morning because someone tried them on and their friend didn't like it or their partner didn't like it or whatever? So
Yeah.
the metric might not. So just do a little sense check on your metric. How many go out at the mall on a Saturday? That's one metric. How many are still
Yep.
sold by Tuesday afternoon or by the next Saturday is the real metric, and it's that sort of
Yeah.
thing about going around, talking to
Yeah.
people. I mean, I always say to techies, read some of the business books. Not necessarily
Yeah.
go get an MBA or something. I know a lot of people with them, and
Sure.
what they know about business is wow. But these sort of little, sort of things about, like in finance, that you sell stuff before you buy it. Yeah,
Yeah.
this kind of thing, and it's what matters to to a company and what makes them money, because in general people either want to make more money or they want to grow or they want
Yep.
to cut costs, but also you think, well, that's it, but not everyone's money driven. Charities want to make a difference for people, governments want to serve the
Yep.
people, and so it's like, why are you here? It's a bit existential when we're talking about a techie podcast here, but it does that
Yeah.
five whys. Why are you here? I'm here to serve the people. Well, could I serve the people, quicker, faster, better? Could I give them a better quality of life? Could I do that? Could I do that? Could I do that? Could I do that? Right. There's your why.
Yep.
Let's go to work.
Well, first off, thank you. I want to thank you for coming in today. And this just reminds me of exactly what
Mm,
the experience was when we met in
mm.
Florida. There's two final questions I wanted to share. One is what is one piece of advice that you have for our listeners? Like, if you were going to leave, like if you're going to sum this up, Like, hey, if you're going to walk away with something, what should they walk away with today?
We've talked a lot about why. And somebody asked me this in Florida, that same convention. They said, we're embarking on a journey of going to containers and containerization and everything. And that's exactly it. What's one piece of advice you can give? And I said, find out what the problem was that it was created to solve. And then you know why it exists. Then you know when you should use it. So you could say, should I use messaging or should I use REST API? Well, okay, why does messaging exist? Because of the
Yep.
problem of disparate systems and decoupling, right? That'll tell you
Yep.
when. So learn
Yep.
the why, and that will tell you and guide you to the when and the how. Because you can apply that to anything,
Thank
and that's the way to grow.
No, that was fantastic. It gets us away from the hammer situation, right?
Exactly,
Uh,
exactly, and yeah, make sure you use the right tool. Yeah, second one, make sure you use the right tool. Yeah. But it is.
and
It's that kind of thing, isn't it? And talk to people. I mean, we got together by chance, as you said. How we got together was sort of a random encounter. But
yeah,
what I've learned from you and us talking together, it's that sort of if you have a dollar, I have a dollar, we get $2. You have an idea, I have an
yeah,
idea. And
yeah.
so yeah, I
So,
love the
and then
tech, but the people are where it's at.
and the last question I have for you is if people want to connect with you, if they want to learn more, they want to follow your work, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Probably the best way is to search for me on IBM. I'm on the social media sites. I'm always, as you can tell, I am always very, very happy to talk about integration. Look me up on the IBM website. Go and look for my product, Cloud Pack for Integration. My contact details should be there, or contact us, etc. Come that way through.
Okay.
It's and as we say, for customers, for partners, for people who are interested, come to the conferences, come to the events. And we're always very, very keen to hear what people are doing because it makes us it gives us new problems to solve, new opportunities to to add more things in.
Well, I'm going to thank you again for coming today, Andy, and for those that have listened to us on the Web Method Unplugged journey, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Web Method Unplugged. We're looking forward to meeting again in the future, and I hope everyone has a good day. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me. It's